Welcome to 40G. Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of 40G. My name is Kylie Lynch and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I am very excited to share with you a little bit more information about 40G, why it was created, what we want to achieve, and also share a little bit about myself and my sporting journey. When I was growing up and chasing big goals in sport, I often felt underprepared, under-resourced, and under-equipped to be able to actually chase my success in sport. There really weren't that many conversations about the downsides of sport and the pursuit to get to the highest level, such as the pressure, the setbacks, the injuries, the sacrifices, or how to actually navigate it all. There was always just the polished stories at the end when they've already achieved their medals, they've achieved their world records and PBs. But I always wanted to know how they actually got there and to be able to mirror their journey and incorporate the lessons and the teachings into my own. So 40G is the space that I wish I had growing up, and I hope that it is a space for up and coming female athletes so that you can learn the lessons that everyone else has learnt and help you along your journey to going wherever you want to go, whether that's in sport, in your career, in life. This is a place where you're going to hear the truth behind the journey. You're going to learn that success is not linear. Success looks like repeated failure, but it also looks like resilience, and that life in general can be quite messy. But you're going to learn about the tools and the methods that high-performing people have implemented in their own journey so you can implement in yours and walk away with these tools, the confidence, and the fire to keep going. I want to start talking straight up about women's sport and how much it has progressed in the past 5 to 10 years. Now, there's no denying that women's sport is at its watershed moment. You only have to look back a couple of years ago to 2023 in the FIFA Women's World Cup, which attracted nearly 2 billion viewers worldwide, making it the most watched women's sport event in history. In fact, women's sports media coverage over the past 5 years has increased by 275%. Now, that tells me that people want to watch women's sport. So for all the people out there that say, it's not entertaining, it's not good enough, and I don't want to watch it, let me tell you that there's a hell of a lot of people out there that do. In 2024, in the Paris Olympics, for the first time ever, there was an equal amount of female and male athletes competing. It is also no doubt that from a financial perspective, the revenue in women's sport has increased immensely. In fact, since 2022, it's increased by 300%. And in this year, 2025 alone, it is anticipated to be worth $2.3 billion. In studying for this episode, I came across a statistic that said that women's sports sponsorship is growing 50% faster than men's major leagues, and that 86% of those sponsors said that their investment in women's sport met or exceeded expectations. In fact, in Australia alone, every $1 invested by a corporate sponsor into the visibility of women's elite sport leads to over $7 of customer value for the organisation. Now, by no means am I a finance bro, but I can tell that that is a solid investment. And just like any good investment, if you put money into it, you will get money out of it. However, women's sport, although it is progressing, is certainly still far from being all rainbows and butterflies. We are losing momentum in areas, and in some instances, we're actually going backwards. This year alone, in Victoria, 2 VFLW programs were informed that their player payments would be completely cut following budget reviews. There has also been lots of instances where there have been female team departures from clubs, such as the Kylie football and netball women's team, who decided to break away from the men's club due to what players described as a horrible and volatile environment, highlighting issues of mistreatment and discrimination. The stat that really shook me was learning that by age 14, girls are dropping out of sport twice the rate of boys. And this is influenced by factors such as lack of access to facilities and change rooms and good ovals. There are social pressures, limited opportunities, and in many instances, there's not a lot of role models that girls can actually look up to due to a lack of media coverage for women's sports. When it comes to teenage girls, 55% experience mental health challenges and 25% experience severe challenges. So what these stats are telling us are two things. Women's sport is thriving, but only when it's properly invested in. From record-breaking crowds at the FIFA Women's World Cup to rapid growth across codes like your AFLW and your NRLW, the data proves that when we give women's sports attention and funding and respect, the results are undeniable. And that is exciting because it goes to show that there is such potential in women's sports and so much of that potential is still untapped. But the second thing it shows us is that behind the headlines, the cracks are still deep. Girls are still dropping out of sport twice the rate of boys. Funding for women's teams is still being cut, even at that semi-professional level. And some women's teams are leaving their clubs due to mistreatment. These aren't just stats. These are real stories, real women, real dreams that are coming to an end because potential is being lost when we're not valuing women's sport. That is where 4TG comes in. 4TG was created to help bridge that gap between where women's sport is heading and where it still needs to go. I am so proud and impressed of how far it has come, but we cannot become complacent because that is when we lose momentum, and that is when we have instances like in the VFLW where women's pay is being cut completely. 4TG is not just about celebrating the medals, it's about the messy and the human, powerful journey behind every single athlete and industry leader. If we want young women to believe they belong in sport and that they can stay and lead and succeed and thrive, we need to change what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and what they're being told. So I want to bring to you the stories of professional athletes, coaches, industry leaders, and everyone doing and achieving great things to empower these young up-and-coming athletes with the tools that they need. But I also want to hear their vulnerable stories. I want to hear about the hardships that they went through. I want to hear about the setbacks. I want to hear about the injuries. I want to hear about the times where they thought about giving up. And then I want to hear why they didn't. Because hearing these stories makes them more relatable and makes them more relatable to you and your journey. That is what the heart of 4TG is all about. One of the major reasons that caused me to start 4TG was that I was part of one of the VFLW programs whose funding was cut at the start of the year, and players were told that they are no longer going to be paid. It absolutely broke my heart, but also brought to the front of my attention that there are so many injustices still to this day in sport. These women in this program are the most committed and diligent workers that I have ever seen. They are the pinnacle of athleticism, and it was so hard to experience seeing them being told that whilst everything that they do is to such a high standard and they have achieved results, they have put in so much time, effort, commitment, money, energy, and all the rest, but they're not going to be paid for it. A mission of 4TG is that never happens to anyone again. It's that it does not happen to our daughters, our nieces, our granddaughters, our younger cousins, sisters, whomever it may be. Because if they are good enough, they should be paid, they should be valued, and they should be respected. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background to my journey, and especially growing up and with sport, and how it led to where I am today, and a lot of the setbacks along the way. So I'm currently with a VFLW program. However, I've done my ACL, so I am a professional bench side assistant. I also work for a senior women's footy team as the assistant coach, and I work for Channel 7 Streamer, which is a streaming platform designed to elevate community sports. If you probably cannot tell already from my very strong Australian country accent, I grew up in rural New South Wales in a small town called Oberon. Oberon is famous for being one of the coldest places on earth, I think. We get snow quite a few times a year, and there's not a whole lot to do. But one thing Oberon does really well is that it values sport. Growing up, sport was part of our life. It's part of our day. We'd get to school, we'd play handball, at recess was basketball, at lunchtime was touch footy that soon turned into full contact footy, boys and girls, and would come inside with mud everywhere. But what was pretty special was that at that age, we were never told that we couldn't play with the boys, or we were never told that touch footy or tackle footy was not a sport for girls. So it really makes you think about that statistic that I mentioned earlier, that at age 14, that's when it starts to become apparent that girls feel like they don't belong in sport, or that they feel like they need to drop out of sport twice at the rate that boys do. Growing up, I also used to idolize my sister, who was very good at sport. Now, she's 5 years older than me, and she just used to come home with all these medals and trophies. They would be coming every week, and I would be sitting there thinking, what do I have to do to get my hands on one of those? And I remember asking Mum, I was like, Mum, when will I get my first medal? And she diplomatically would say, your time will come. You just need to keep putting in your hard work and it will all happen. Mind you, I was only about 4 or 5 when I was asking this question, and Natalie was about 9 or 10. So she did have a couple of years on me, but for some reason, whatever she did, I thought I should be doing. And guess what? Mum was right. I continued on with sport and I would get my first medal, and then I'd get my second medal, and I'd get my third. And I became obsessed or almost addicted to the feeling that I would get when I got the medal and the validation I would get for it. Now that has carried on throughout my life, and I've only come to realize it now, but it has played a massive role in why in every aspect of my life, I feel as though I need to be achieving. I need to be getting A's in school. I need to be getting PBs in the gym. I need to be getting picked in the highest team possible in all my sports. I need to be the best at my job that I can be and constantly delivering results. And it actually prevented me from being happy with what I have already achieved and taking all of that in instead of always thinking about what's next. It sort of developed this high-performing anxiety within me that whatever I did, I had to be the best at it. And if I wasn't working hard enough and I wasn't going to be respected enough. So at that young age, I was directly linking my self-worth to my external achievements and the validation I would get with them. And that was very destructive throughout my life. And again, I have only had the self-awareness to really unearth that in the past 12 months or so. In saying that, sport was the best part of my childhood. I absolutely loved it. I played every sport I could, and I became quite good at it. I got on the path of getting picked in the representative sides and the state sides and the national sides for a lot of sports. I came to a crossroads and I had to choose my 2 main sports, which was soccer and polocrosse. Now, yes, polocrosse is the one on the horse, but no, it is not the one that Prince Harry plays, unfortunately. So when I was in about year 7, I chose to go with polocrosse, because polocrosse was such an incredible community. My mum played it, my sister played it, my uncles and aunties and cousins played it, and it just made you feel when you arrived to the tournaments that you were home. You would pack up the horse truck and put the horses in and drive down on a Friday night. You would set up camp with your team and have one communal campfire where you'd sit around and talk for hours. And it was just a nice community to be a part of. The focus was never on the results. It was all about the conversations at the campfire. I began to climb, I guess, the linear success route and was selected in representative teams, to state teams, to national teams, and eventually to the Australian under-21 squad. However, when I was on my journey to success and going from, level to level to level, I was getting more feedback, I was getting more coaching, I was getting more opinions, and the more I started to second guess myself, and completely shattered my self-confidence and my natural ability on the field, which made me good in the first place. Sport is all about split-second decisions. And when you're in your head too much and you're thinking, is that what my coach would want me to do? Or will they be angry if I do this instead? Then you lose your natural ability to play that sport. You lose your timely nature to make quick decisions under pressure. And of course, your performance will drop. It's kind of this analysis paralysis where the more you learn, the more you're told, the more you have to think before you make a decision. It's not like just going out there for fun where you get kicked a ball and you just do something with it, right? Because there's no expectations on you. You just use your natural instincts. So I got to a stage where I really was not enjoying polocrosse at all. And I ended up, when I got to uni, I gave it up. And it wasn't just because I wasn't enjoying it. There was also a number of logistical reasons, like I moved to Sydney for university. Funnily enough, I couldn't take my horse. I could hardly afford living down there myself. So it wasn't fair on my teammates that I would not train throughout the week and then arrive to the competition on a weekend and play. And it equally wasn't as fair on mum and dad, who had to do all the work throughout the week. Mum had to ride the horse, feed the horse, rug the horse, wash the horse, etc. Pack up the truck, take it down there. I just jumped on the horse, played the games, and then left, and they had to unpack everything as well. So polocrosse came to a natural end. And then for a couple of years, I only played sport for fun. I started playing soccer again for my university team. I moved to Indonesia when uni finished to work for the United Nations and started playing some rugby over there. And it wasn't until I returned back to Canberra for work when I started playing AFL. And that would have been in about 2021, 2022. So I was about 22 or 23 at the time, and I absolutely loved it. I joined the ANU Griffins, and they were the most accepting, inclusive, and supporting club I have ever been a part of. Now, I took for granted that this is just what AFL is. This is what all AFL clubs are like. And knowing what I know now, I was so wrong. I ended up playing and I was quite good at it because I had a big kick from soccer. Was very inaccurate, I would say, but I could kick it about 60 meters, and that was turning a lot of heads at the time. We were lucky enough to win the premiership, and I got best and fairest, which still to this day I would argue debatable, but anyway, we'll take it. And I had a lot of people saying, look, Kylie, you've got the raw talent to make it if you wanted to in AFLW. And I would sort of just say, look, I don't think I'm good enough. It wasn't until I moved to Scotland to do my master's and I joined an AFL team over there, the Glasgow Giants, big shout out to the Glasgow Giants, by the way, that again, I felt this sense of community and it was just so much fun to be around people, and it gave me a connection back to home in Australia. And I really thought about it then and said, you know what, I love AFL. I love it. It's giving me my friends. It's giving me my confidence back. And I do think if I dedicated my time and energy to it, that I would be good enough to make it. So I planned to then, as soon as I moved home from Scotland, go straight to Darwin in the NTFL to do their season, because their season is in everyone else's off season. And I thought, I'll go there, I'll get fit, I'll get my skill up, and then I'll move to Melbourne and give it 100% a good crack and see if I can make the VFLW and then maybe one day the AFLW. So then I moved to Darwin, and again, I fell into an incredible club, which was extremely supportive, and I made lifelong friends there, and the footy itself was fantastic. We were playing with the likes of Danielle Ponta and Jazzy Hewitt, who are premiership winning players. And the standard there was just so high, and I went from strength to strength and learnt a lot during my time there. So when I moved back to Melbourne with the full intention of getting picked up by a VFLW team and taking it all the way, I decided to really lock in. I got myself an S&C, strength and conditioning coach. I was training as much as I could. I was doing my extras. I was doing extra running, extra touch drills. I was getting external coaching. And the more I crammed into the day, the more I started to resent it. I was getting up at 5 a.m. every single morning. I was driving 30 to 40 minutes to the gym, doing my gym, coming home, having a shower, and getting dressed and ready for work. Had to leave work early, often wasn't eating or fueling enough throughout my day at work to go straight to training, to get in some early touches before training began, do my main session of training, and then leave at about 8:39, and again, not really fueling properly. This was the most detrimental cycle I have ever been in. Not only did I resent footy, I was just in a dark place mentally. I put so much of my self-worth into my dream of progressing in footy, even though I had a successful career before that. I was just so tunnel visioned into my worth is dependent on how far I can go in footy. And guess what? I started getting injured. I would love to speak to someone about the relationship between stress and injury, because every time I think about moments in my life where I have had injury, especially soft tissue, it is always correlated with a moment where I've been extremely stressed externally. So I started getting injured. I started becoming even more isolated from the rest of the team and more resentful at the fact that I'm the one doing everything and yet I'm the one getting injured. And I started playing more poorly, which meant that I resented it even more. And I got to a stage where I was just burnt out from the whole process. And I said, I either need to give up footy or I need to seek help. So I went and saw a sports psychologist, and we started working on the why. Why do I play footy? And all my answers were leading to because I need to make it. And then my sports psychologist at the time said, well, what made it so special when you started playing? And I said, it was the people. And we started to work all the way back and draw everything back to how it felt when I started playing and try to replicate that now. And it worked. I started to completely detach from the outcome of having to achieve that next level and just started playing it just to have fun, just to have a kick around with friends. And guess what? I started playing a lot better. I started enjoying it. The better I got, the more I enjoyed it. The more I enjoyed it, the better I got, and it just became a positive chain of events. VFL clubs became interested. I started training with the VFL club. It was all going really well. And then just like anything else, I did my ACL. Just in the prelim final moments, pretty much before I started my VFL journey in the preseason. I was absolutely shattered. I went through the whole 9 stages of grief. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was thinking, why did it happen to me when, again, I'm the one here that is putting in so much work, so much more work than a lot of other teammates are, but yet I'm the one that constantly is getting injured. However, I remember telling myself that I'm allowed to lean into every single emotion I am feeling. I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to have tears, but only for 24 hours. And then the next day, I have to get on with life and I have to think about, okay, what's rehab like? What's life like after this? And just get on with it, because I could have felt sorry for myself the whole time. But guess what? That's not changing anything. And I'm the only one who can change my thoughts and my actions. So the next day, I woke up and I thought, yep, this is really shit, but this could also be an opportunity. And from there, I just kept building on that and building on that and building on that. I worked with a sports psychologist and we tried to find all the positives that were now ahead of me. I shifted into sports media, which was a jump that I've wanted to do for a very long time, but felt like I didn't have the space or the confidence really to do it. It did look like I took a massive pay cut from my corporate communications job, which was scary, but it was an opportunity that I had to take, and I'm so glad that I did today. It also allowed me to branch out into other areas of life that weren't football. I was asked to coach for the Caulfield Grammarians, a team I was playing with the year before, just being an assistant coach there. And I thought, absolutely, that will allow me to improve my footy IQ and it will allow me to work on my leadership skills, which will be so beneficial for when I get back to the game. It also allowed me to upskill myself in other areas, such as being given the Play Like a Girl Empowered to Lead scholarship, which is all about leaning into your feminine traits to be the best leader on and off the field. And I'm so excited to announce that we are having the Play Like a Girl CEO and founder, Holly Bailey, on very shortly to help give you some of the key takeaways from that leadership course. I'm telling you today that 10 months on from my knee reconstruction, doing my ACL was the single best thing that has ever happened for me, because it has allowed me the space and the time to step away and say, why do I play footy? And do I want to continue playing footy? Am I playing footy for the right reasons? Now, when I did my ACL, on top of all this feeling of being overwhelmed and angry and upset, I did also feel this subconscious feeling of relief, because it meant that for 12 months, I cannot control the outcome. It is out of my control and I do not have to internalize all this pressure. 10 months on from my ACL reconstruction, I've realized that it has given me the space and the clarity to think about my why. Why was I playing football? I can answer it right now. I used to play it just so I could say that I'm played a VFL and that I'm working my way to the top, because I always thought success was linear and that, you've got to go up the rungs of the ladder to get there. And once you're there, you're successful. I now realize that I play footy because I absolutely love the sport and I love the people that it has introduced me to. And I love having the purpose in life and the structure that it gives me. So I'm going to be pretty open and vulnerable here and tell you my goal and my intention and put it out there to the universe. I want to play AFLW, not just so that I can say I got there or that I can say I'm an AFLW player or I've finally reached the pinnacle of success in one sport, but I want to get to that level so that I can help build a team who has never been in a final to win a premiership. I think there'd be something so special in building something from the bottom up and helping lead and mentor younger athletes to become the best people they can be first. Because you cannot be a good athlete if you cannot be a well-rounded and holistic person. So now I challenge you to share what your dream and your goal is with someone, with multiple people. And I know it's scary because often we fear failure. But more often than we fear failure, we actually fear judgment. What if we set out to achieve something and we don't achieve it? What are people going to think of us? Well, I can tell you this. Success comes from having dreams bigger than fears, and we generate fears while we sit, but we overcome them with action. You need to have a dream or something to work towards to give yourself a sense of purpose, because a life without purpose is a life without fulfillment and it's a life wasted. It doesn't matter what your dream is or how silly it sounds or irrational it may sound to you. Have a dream, tell someone about it, and put it out there to the universe and start working towards it. But don't work towards it just to achieve the outcome. Work towards it for the things that you can learn and the person that you can be in the process of it. And if someone tells you their dream, ask them, how can I help you achieve it? Is there someone in my network that I can connect you with? Is there a resource that I can share with you that will help you get there? How can I check in to make sure that they are tracking to achieve their dream? And simultaneously, ask that person how they can help you achieve yours. There are so many times that we work in isolation and we think that we need to achieve our dreams by ourselves, but we can only go so far by ourselves. You need to have a supportive team around you, and you can go so much further if you work with people. And 40G is here to help you achieve your dream. It's here to provide a space and a community where you can ask questions of fellow members. You can ask the top athletes and industry leaders what they did. And don't feel like you're in this alone. I want a space where no 14-year-old girl thinks that she has to give up sport because she's not valued in it, there's no place for her, and there's no future for her financially. I also don't want a world where a girl has to choose between pursuing her sporting career and taking a, quote, normal career because there's no financial stability in it, there's no resources for it, and there's no value for her because people just don't think that women's sports is valuable enough to watch or to support or to invest in. Now, wrapping this up, I will just say that we have got 3 segments that we're going to focus on in just about every episode with all the guests. The first segment will be on what would you tell your 16-year-old self, knowing what you know now? If you could go back in time and look at your 16-year-old self and tell them one thing, what would it be? The next 2 questions are more of an advocacy piece around women's sport. The first being, on an individual level, what is something we can all do today to promote women's sport? The second is at a more systemic level. So at a broader level, what needs to happen in order for women's sport to become equal to men's? Whether that is more policy, whether that is more media coverage or more funding. And from all of these answers, I hope to be able to collate them into some recommendations that you as the community can use or you can take to your boards or organizations or sporting teams and ask for them to implement to help you in your sporting career. One thing I really want to make clear is that this community is for everyone, men and women. Sometimes men are our biggest supporters and women are our harshest critics. So irrespective of gender, age, race, sexuality, or anything, if you believe, support, and want to promote women's sport, then this community is for you. And I cannot wait to see what we achieve. This is not my community, it's yours, it's ours. It's not just for females, it's for men, and it's for everyone who are willing to step up, show up, and speak up for women's sport. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you got some value out of this, and I really cannot wait to show you some of the guests that we've got lined up. So please stay tuned, share this with someone if it resonated, and I cannot wait to see what we achieve together. This one was for the girls.